Please be seated. We've been talking about the Christmas pageant for weeks at my house. Now, lest you think as a pastor that I'm forcing my child into this, she was the one, Penelope, my 3-year-old, brought it up, announcing first that she wanted to be an angel in the pageant this year. Sure, I said, delighted to have the matter settled so easily. You know how the saying goes, you make plans and toddlers laugh. I underestimated the circuitous mind of my toddler. Because then Penelope announced she wanted to be a shepherd, which, once again, was just fine. Shepherd it was. Then, the next day, Penelope informed me she wanted to be Mary. This was problematic, as that coveted role is reserved for high schoolers. And then we were in a weeks-long standstill in negotiations, which is another sermon for a different day. However, I was relieved when, this weekend, Penelope informed me she wanted to be a shepherd. Absolutely, I said quickly and with gusto before she changed her mind, and I was very happy that the matter had resolved itself. And an angel, she added. I want to be a shepherd and an angel together. You want to be, and I was trying to figure out what the costuming and what does that even mean? I was trying to keep up with her. I want to be a shepherd and an angel, Penelope repeated, as if I wasn't catching on to the obvious. Then she went on, I want to be a shepherd, an angel, and Mary, and all the characters in the Christmas pageant, together. You can be a shepherd this year, an angel next year, and Mary when you get older, I suggested, trying to be helpful. No! I want to be all of them right now. And while it's easy to be amused and bemused by the way that a small child's brain works, I also find it really revelatory, honest. And if I'm really honest, not that far different from where my head goes. I'm just a little bit more sophisticated, had more practice. But for example, I find I will often look to others, whether they're people I know or historical figures or people popularly known for their intellect or kindness or courage or spirituality, and I think, that person, they seem to have things figured out. I'd like to be more like them. And then I notice another person and think the exact same thing. And another. And, funny to note, often they have wildly different character traits, right, that are not compatible with each other. And I wonder, have you ever felt that way? That you wanted to be like anyone but yourself? Pretty soon I noticed that I have an attitude that's very much like Penelope's. I want to be like all those people, right now. Today we're celebrating the second Sunday of Advent and St. Nicholas Day. And today's gospel reading tells a part of the story of John the Baptist, who shunned polite society and social convention. He lived in the wilderness, dressed strangely, had a weird diet, and proclaimed a bold message calling people to amend their lives. He was particularly bold in rebuking religious leaders, but his message wasn't easy for anybody, not even today. I admire John the Baptist's courage and faithfulness and boldness in proclaiming God's way to the world. But I'm coming to realize I am not called to be John the Baptist. In a couple of moments, we're going to be learning about the life and ministry of St. Nicholas. I admire his generosity and goodness and ministry with children, which entirely by accident, after spending nearly 20 years working with children in some capacity or another, it's a calling I share with St. Nicholas. But I am not called to be St. Nicholas. The truth is, God calls me to be me, which is not to say that God does not challenge me to do difficult things and to grow, for God does, daily. Sometimes I even manage to do it with God's help. But rather, God calls me to live faithfully into my vocation, that point of convergence between my life, my gifts and abilities, and the needs of this time and this place. Not the time of St. John the Baptist, not the time of St. Nicholas, but this time. And God has the same calling for you, to live faithfully in that point of convergence between your life, your gifts and abilities, and the needs of this time and place. This is a calling for everyone, regardless of age or abilities or personal propensity for screw-ups. You're never too old or too young, too damaged or too lost for God to work through you. As a matter of fact, I've found it through our liabilities that God works the most powerfully. And I do mean this is for everyone. Consider the babies who, when they start out, they can't even hold up their heads. And I know not everybody is a baby person, and that's okay. And the amount of joy and awe and wonder that a baby who can do nothing, almost nothing for themselves, and yet they bring me in touch with awe, with wonder, with the divine and the holy. So you'll notice in our bulletin that after the children's sermon, which is to follow, we were going to have a sacrament of baptism. And again, because God works in and through all of life's circumstances, it appears that we won't be able to have a baptism because life happens and family life happens, and sometimes you make commitments and people aren't able to keep them. But that's the very point. In all of this, God works. In our triumphs and our failures, God works in and through us. So may this day be a sacrament of renewal for all of us, that we are called to our ministry, just as we are in whatever life circumstance we find ourselves. We are called to seek and serve Christ in one another and to live faithfully our vocation, that point of convergence between our lives, our gifts and abilities, and the needs of this time and place. In doing so, we will join in the work with the communion of saints, St. John the Baptist, St. Nicholas, and with God's help, you and me. Amen. And I would now like to invite Briella forward to introduce a very special guest that will be appearing momentarily.